Support for How in the Hell Did I Get Here comes from the Coloring Book Coach. Did you know it's possible to heal your heart and more through coloring and the support of the Coloring Book Coach? Visit thecoloringbookcoach.com for your free coloring book. Hey, it's Kim, and this week we have a really special show about someone who was a really special person. Today we're going to talk about my friend and former boss, Adrienne Weinstein. She's not with us anymore, but she left an indelible mark on my life during the 16 years we worked together. She and Faye, who was my employee, were my, quote, Jewish mothers, and man, did we ever have some fun adventures. Think of us as Lucy, Ethel, and Ethel, and you never knew which one of us was going to be Lucy, but a lot of the time, it was Adrienne. Sadly, we lost Adrienne in 2005, and yesterday would have been her 79th birthday. Today's show is dedicated to her and all about her, with stories and memories from my other Jewish mother, Faye, and Adrienne's sons, Chad and Josh. I feel very lucky to have known Adrienne. She was a great boss and a great friend, and they broke the mold when they made her. There really never was a dull moment when she was around, and she left behind a lot of funny stories. And I think in ways she helped me learn about the power of telling a good story, and helped me understand that life is full of stories when you look at it in the right way. So in that way, she still lives on in this podcast. Before we get going, I want to say a special shout out to our newest producer, Dave A., who is supporting the show with a monthly contribution. You can do that too at coffee.com/howinthehell. This is Kim A. Floden, and you're listening to How in the Hell Did I Get Here? Quick note, as always, today's episode includes swear words. Stay with us. And have you RSVP'd yet for our virtual happy hour? You're invited to come hang out with us on Zoom on Wednesday, September 4th at 5 p.m. Pacific Time for a virtual happy hour with all of the sisters. That's me, Carrie, Jenny, Erin, Sky, and our sister from another mister, Tammy. There'll be games, prizes, silliness, and sass. Visit How in the Hell Podcast to sign up and receive your free recipe for our signature cocktail, the Drunken Donkey. You just never knew what kind of shenanigans you might get into when you were hanging out with Adrienne. Enjoy a few stories here that I shared with my sister Carrie. I spent the majority of my career working for Bachman's Floral Gift and Garden Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. If you're ever there, go take a visit. The main store is really impressive to visit. I mean, they have huge greenhouses, and those greenhouses in the winter were like a godsend. To be able to go up there and walk through all that greenery was just like kept me sane.
Minnesota in the winter is just gray. There's no other colors. It's just
right.
Well, you get 50 shades of gray, but that's
yeah, that's a different thing. We're not going to talk about that. So anyway, so I worked with these two women, and I referred to them as the Jewish mothers. One was my boss, Adrienne was my boss, and the other one was my employee, which was hilarious because they were, well, Adrienne definitely was old enough to be my mother, and Faye was like, if she would have been a teen mother, she could have been my mother. And we used to have the craziest freaking adventures. So one time we were downtown at the Target Center. There was we were editing a commercial. There was like an editing booth down there. We were editing TV commercials, and we were there for like 3 days. I mean, we went home every night, but when you're editing a TV thing, you're in a dark room for like 8 hours a day, and it's boring. So the last day we were giddy when we got out. It was like a Friday, and we're like, fuck, we're finally done with this. We can go home. So those two get in the front seat, and we're at the Target Center, and Adrienne is driving, and they are like chattering away in the front seat. And I'm in the back seat, kind of dazed out from like these 3 days of being in the dark. And I'm like not paying attention, but then I am kind of paying attention. And I realize, I look at this truck and I think, oh, that's kind of an interesting looking truck. And then I'm still kind of dazing out. And then I see, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of isn't that the same? And then I'm like, no, maybe it isn't. Then I'm like, Adrienne, we're on the same floor. She is like driving, like she's going down. And they're just she's just going in a big circle on the same level. And, and they had no idea. Yes, was another version of a roundabout. Yeah. Okay. So that reminds me of another time. So Champ's restaurant in Richfield, Minnesota. I don't even know if it's still there anymore, but it was near there. And we would go there for lunch pretty often. And they had a whole, like they had an atrium window on one whole side of the restaurant. It was on a corner. So we
go. Yeah, I remember that place.
Yeah. So it's good. Yeah, it was pretty good there. So we go there one day for lunch. Adrienne drove a kind of a ubiquitous Camry, nothing special about it, but good car. So we pull in and we are parked across from that big atrium window. It's basically like a 2-story wall of windows, right? Like, so you can see everybody who's parking there, right? Yep. You can see that whole parking lot. Okay. So we go in, we have lunch. It's all good. We come back out, we get in the car, and Adrienne is like fumbling with her key, and she's like, I don't know what's going on. She's like, she's like, this is so weird. And I'm like looking around and I'm thinking something is off. And all of a sudden I'm like, were these Kleenex in here before? And she's not paying attention to me because she's freaking out because like the key is not, something's weird with the key and she's worried about it. And all of a sudden I'm like, did you always have a sunroof? And Faye's like, whose briefcase is this back here? Because she's in the back seat. So we're in there for like, it seems like we're in there for like 5 minutes, right? So all of a sudden, like it dawns on us all at the same time. And we all look at each other and we're like, holy shit, we're not in the right car.
Thank God you weren't able to drive away in it because you guys probably would have.
And then we're like 3 morons trying to get out of the car. Like you can't get the door open fast enough, right? Yes. We're like the 3 stooges, like flailing, trying to get out of there. And like we all burst out and then, we're across from that giant window.
Right.
And we are laughing so fucking hard and at the same time mortified. So then we're like, we all pop out of the car and then we're all like trying to act cool, right? And then, but we're also going, where the fuck is the car?
Yeah.
Where'd the car go? And then we realized we are parked next to a huge white van, probably like the creepy one that Jenny encountered in the Taser episode. Yeah. And on the other side of the van is Adrienne's car. And either her car key thing like clicked that car open or it wasn't locked or who knows? But that was a classic Adrienne moment right there. When it came to Adrienne, anything could happen. And it usually did. Stay tuned for more stories. Hey there, it's Kim. I'm just popping in to answer a quick question someone asked, which is what more they could do to help support the show beyond sharing, reviewing, and subscribing. Here's a quick list. 1, buy us a cookie or 2 at coffee.com. That's coffee.com/howinthehell. It's actually spelled ko-fi.com and then /howinthehell. 2, we have fun merchandise, shirts, mugs, bags, even socks. The link is at howinthehellpodcast.com. 3, are you a small business owner? You can advertise on the show. Email howinthehell@gmail.com or call 323-488-3303. Thank you, and now back to the show. I don't know where she got the idea to do this, but she decided to take charcoal pills. So
she was ahead of her time.
Yeah, well, okay, she was very ahead of her time. So listen, so she didn't just take like a bit of charcoal pills. Like she was chomping those things all the time. I mean, so one day I'm in my office and her office was like across, there was like an open space and then her office was like across from mine. I hear like this sound come out of her office and I'm like, what was that? And then she was like laughing so hard she couldn't talk. And so I go over there and I'm like, it looks kind of smoky in her office. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she goes, she's like, I burped and a huge black cloud came out.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. And she's laughing about this? I would have been terrified.
Oh my God. Like everything had like a black dust on it. And I'm like, what happened? And then another day we're sitting there and we were doing budgeting and it was like budgeting was a big deal there because it was just a big deal. And it was like the whole month of January seemed like we were just like our heads down doing the budgeting because it was crazy. So she is in there and I can hear like her adding things up, trying to get the budget figured out. But I'm not really paying attention, but I know she's in there doing it. And then all of a sudden I hear like, she's like, oh shit. And then she's laughing so hard. And I'm like, what did you do now? And she goes, well, I just added up the whole, whatever it was, budget, like some huge column of numbers. And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, on my phone.
What?
She's using the keypad on her phone.
So the daily budget or the yearly budget came to like 121 trillion and something.
She thought her hand was on the calculator thingy. Oh,
yeah.
God, she was something else. Adrienne's sons, Chad and Josh, realized that their mom really was someone special. Here, Chad shares why this podcast is the perfect place to tell some Adrienne stories.
This is a perfect podcast to talk about my mom because my mom, Adrienne, was perpetually in a state of, how the hell did I get here? I mean, completely.
Totally.
She went to college and she knew she needed a degree. And her father said, just in case this whole marriage thing doesn't work out, you need to be able to support yourself. So she went into advertising and then she found she liked it. And thankfully, the marriage worked out great. She and my dad had an amazing, loving, fantastic partnership. I mean, really great marriage. And two unique people who were complementary to one another in a really powerful way. She always attributed to my father the brains, but she was every bit as smart as my dad. She wasn't bookish, but she was very intuitive and extremely quick and sharp. But she always kind of wondered how she got there. She did retail advertising. She never felt like she wanted to go to the big show and do the agencies where the money and the flash was. She always kind of admired it, but she never did it. And she found herself at Bachman's through a connection, got the job, didn't have any interest in the floral business or in gardening. In fact, no talent. I mean, the only houseplants in our house were the toughest. They were the quick or the dead. Yeah. I got to tell you, our yard was going back to nature, and she went to work for a garden and floral company.
Yes. Faye and I talked about your yard when we recorded. We were like, remember that yard?
Which would be fine, except that the business she was in, right? And, when she took the job as director, she came in as advertising manager. And when her boss, Alan, moved on, she was offered the director position and didn't want it. She said, I don't want more management responsibilities. And then we sort of talked her into it. My brother and I, we kind of tag teamed her and said, do you want them to hire someone or do you want to be that person? Do you want to roll the dice really with your quality of life or do you want to do this? And she did it, but she was perpetually wondering, how the hell did I get here? How the hell did a Jewish lady end up in charge of Christmas? She hired Santa Claus. She ran the North Pole.
I sent you that picture of her with the Christmas tree, right? I'm using
that picture. Absolutely.
Yes, I know. She was. We used to joke she was, how the hell did I get here? And look a bird. Because something could happen and distract her, and we would be off and running in a completely different direction, and we'd all be like, what the hell?
Completely. And particularly if it involved a human relationship. She would come home and she would say, I'm so upset. Why are you upset? Because I found out that so-and-so in the arrangement room has cancer. And I said, well, that's terrible. Is she close? Well, no, I don't really know her, but I feel terrible. She did, No,
she had a heart of gold, your mom. She did.
The other thing I remember about her work was when I started to study business ethics professionally, I came to her and I said, I'm kind of concerned you build these extremely close relationships with your vendors. And I understand why you do, but I said, they're not vendors, they're frienders. And the problem with that is, you've got a fiduciary responsibility to Bachman's. And if you have this close personal relationship with a vendor, you're at risk for being exploited. You're at risk for not trying to drive a hard bargain or to do what's best for the company. And she looked at me and she said, that looks fine in the books, but here's the deal. My people would take a bullet for me me, and they do what's right for Bachman's, and they give us breaks all the time because of our relationships. And I treat them fairly, and they treat me fairly, and I would never do better by looking for arm's length prices from anyone else. And, after she died, I had the opportunity to talk to her trib rep, a couple of the radio reps, and I said, I have to ask this question. I've always wondered. They said, your mother drove an extremely hard bargain.
Oh, yeah, she did.
She was very tough, but we loved her. And so we did everything we could. And they said she was always fair with us, that she understood we were human and that mistakes happen. We never wanted to screw up for Adrienne because we knew she cared. If you could make her laugh, you were good. No, she loved to laugh. And in fact, the total win was if you could make her laugh so she had to run to the bathroom. That was it.
You were off
the goal of my childhood. I underachieved throughout my entire childhood. I mean, she was very trusting as a parent to a fault.
Yeah.
I mean, she would ask us, did you do your homework? And then when we said yes, she would say good. And that was it. I mean, this is how I got labeled a gifted underachiever, right? I mean,
yes.
But I came by it honestly. My mother could reasonably have been described as a gifted underachiever.
Yes.
My father too.
We really were a lot like the Three Stooges, but we had so much fun. In this story, Faye and myself reminisce about some of the crazy situations we ended up in with Adrienne. The deal was, we all three worked for the advertising department at Bachman's, and the hilarious thing was Adrienne was my boss, and then eventually I was Faye's boss, but really no one was anybody's boss. We kind of just were all in it together, as you can hear. And one of the radio stations was doing some sort of a promotion and giving away a trip to Hawaii for their clients, like if you bought a certain amount of ads or whatever. And we hadn't, but they loved Adrienne, and Mare had just passed like within that last year. And it was rough. She was in a rough space. Yeah. And I remember the woman from the radio station coming in and saying, we want to give you this trip. And, that was really against the rules there. I mean, I think it was definitely, we couldn't accept gifts like that from vendors, right?
Right.
So, I remember our boss came down, Dick came down, and I remember Adrienne and telling him, and I was sitting in my office just I was chanting over and over in my head, just let her go, let her go, let her go, let her go, let her go. Cause she just really needed it. I mean, she needed something to take her mind off of everything. And Hawaii is a beautiful place to go for healing. I mean, it is. It's kind of magical there. So they did. They said she could go, which was huge. And then she was like, she didn't know who she was going to take. She was freaking out about that because, she had so many girlfriends, right?
Right on.
And she didn't want to offend anybody.
Exactly.
Right. She didn't want anyone to feel bad. So then I think obviously that you became like the prime choice. But then I was like freaking out because I'm like, what are you're leaving me here by myself? But it was fine. I mean, there wasn't. So then,
and then we saw the flaming dancers too, and she took some pictures that were so hilarious. Each one, it looked like the guy had a flaming penis. I've never seen
I remember that. It was like no matter what she did, she could not get a picture that was normal. Every time his balls were on fire or something.
Exactly. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I thought, did I miss this when I was there? He sure didn't look like he had a penis, but that's what she photographed.
Well, I was thinking when we got in the wrong car at Champs.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. And the thing is, it took a while before we actually knew that we were in the wrong car.
That's the thing.
She didn't have a sunroof to begin with.
Yes, that's what I remember. You were one of us said. I remember I got fixated on a box of Kleenex, the front seat, and I was like, where did these Kleenex come from? And she was, do you remember this? She was all fixated on trying to get the car to start.
That's right. She was really worried. I think she thought she was going to have to bring it into the service, but towed away or something.
She was so fixated on the fact that the key wasn't fitting right, and the car wasn't starting. And you and I are like, do. I'm like, where are we? And then I think it was you that said, did you always have a sunroof?
Oh, jeez.
But do you remember then what happened?
No,
I mean,
what happened then?
the moment that we realized that we were in the wrong car.
Oh my God moment. The oh my God moment. That's what it was. And that wasn't such a nice place. People did get shot around there all the time.
Well, and we were in front of the big window, the full 2-story window, atrium window for the restaurant. So it's like we were like the entertainment for the lunch.
Yeah. She had a way. She did. She just had a way of taking us all into adventure. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, she
was
did.
One who truly did go for the story. Yes.
She did go for the story. And thank God. I mean, it made her life richer and ours too. Because I was telling my sister, I said, it was hilarious that every morning when we came into work, you, me, and her, we took a half hour to debrief what had happened to us since we left the day before at 5:00.
Honest to God. But she was always a half an hour late, remember? Her stomach was always upset. She could never
That's because she was pounding those charcoal pills.
Oh, geez, that was the best. That truly was the best story of all. Oh, I miss it.
In this story, Adrienne's son Josh shares about what it was like growing up with his mom and how she helped influence him to become a world-renowned stand-up comedian, among other things.
The biggest lesson I learned from both my parents is that things can be both incredibly serious and incredibly hilarious simultaneously. And I mean, that's how I got the wiring of a comedian, was seeing life through that dual lens that was never about over drama and was always about sort of going, holy shit, this is ridiculous.
Right.
As well as, holy shit, this is horrific.
Yeah, because some of the biggest holy shit things in life can be also hilariously funny.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get away from it a little bit, but sometimes they're funny even when they're happening, like when the monkey had me by my hair.
I spent my life trying to make her laugh, because she was a great laugh. In my family, and particularly with my mom, there was no amount of tension you couldn't break with a good joke. If it was a bad joke, it could backfire in a huge way and escalate majorly.
Yeah.
But I did find that there was, if you got the good joke at the right moment, she would break. And she
appreciated timing and understood it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, her audience skills to me were hugely formative because it wasn't an easy room at my house, but it was like a good joke always got its due.
Yes, exactly. Yep. And I remember that too from working with her. And your mom loved to laugh.
And she laughed till she peed.
Yes. And she did laugh till she peed.
Yes.
God.
She was actually one of the most road ragey drivers I ever met. She would just narrate her rage at people. And it was always about people doing unfair things.
Yeah.
Trying to merge into that lane at Lindale off the cross.
Yeah, people cutting in. Ooh.
Oh, God. No, she drove fast and she drove intensely. When we were in her funeral procession in the limo behind the hearse, I think my wife said, do you think she's really in there? And I'm like, no, if she was, we wouldn't be going this slow.
Yeah, exactly. The menopause fan. I have one now. I should call it Adrienne. It's my friend Adrienne.
I cleaned out her house and there was 15 menopause fans.
Oh, God, yeah.
Out, for some reason she didn't throw them away when they're...
well, no, it might not have been that.
99 life.
No, it's not that she probably didn't throw them away. She probably didn't know where they were.
No, they were in it, there was at least a dozen in a drawer. Hoarding issues. She also had a gajillion pairs of her size black shoes. But she had a big foot too, and she was constantly lamenting her big feet. So when she found a pair of shoes that fit, she would buy them always. And so she had this remarkable collection of incredibly similar shoes. And there's a Jewish tradition that you don't give away shoes of the dead people. Hey, I had to throw away these shoes. Oh. So they were like contractor bags filled with black shoes of almost indecipherable difference. It wasn't like she was even a shoe fan. It wasn't like she wasn't a Melda Marcos about it.
No.
It ain't that interesting. This wide variety of. She wasn't like a hat lady. She just had this basic insecurity that's like they might stop making her size. I don't know.
They're going to stop with that size and that's it.
But that was, I mean, she had a basic insecurity about I might run out of something I want. Found something she liked. It was now a supply chain. Like if she lived today, she would have so many Amazon ongoing subscriptions to products. She'd be dangerous on Amazon. I'm surprised she never had like a QVC problem or anything like that.
Oh, thank God.
She bought some ridiculous shit on a regular basis.
I do remember her buying some crazy shit. Like she liked the Walgreens crazy aisle. You know how they always have the weird shit in Walgreens.
Yeah, like the bad kitchen gadgets. And
yes,
smart.
I think I remember she bought a vibrator at Walgreens one day.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, she really thought it was for her back.
Yeah.
And yeah, she brought it back and showed it to me and Faye, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to use this," and we're like, "For what?"
As I said, no boundaries.
No, but she didn't see it until we said, Adrienne, look at it. Look at the shape of it. That is not for your back. And she was like, oh. We'd like to close this week with a few words from Adrienne herself as recorded at her last birthday party thrown by her sons. It was a full-blown concert with Josh, his wife, and their band performing for her and about 100 of her friends. And a night I'll never forget. I think you can hear that we lost someone pretty damn special.
Whenever I heard someone express the thought that something good always comes out of the worst situations, you know how cynical I am. And my little mind went, right. But something good has come of my illness. A bright, shining love that has come from everyone in this room. My sons, Allison, Marvin, who came to my house every night to make sure I was okay and lock up my house and tuck me in. My sister, her family, all my family, and every single friend in this room. You have no idea how I appreciate all of you. You cared for me, you cooked for me, you schlepped me to appointments when I couldn't drive, or just so I wouldn't be alone there. You utzed me along to get stronger and generally made me feel loved and protected and cared for. All of you have shown me that despite all the difficult things that come with my cancer, I have much to celebrate. Thank you. I love you all.
As always, thanks for listening, and a huge thank you to everyone who is supporting the show in any way. Whether you're listening, reviewing, subscribing, or sharing, or becoming producers on Ko-fi.com, you are our heroes. We truly appreciate you and your support. How in the Hell Did I Get Here is written, produced, and hosted by Kim A. Floden, with editing help from Carrie Floden. I'd like to say a special thank you here to Adrienne's sons, Chad and Josh, for joining us this week to share memories of their mom. Dr. Chad Weinstein is hardly the underachiever he claims to be. He is founder and president of Ethical Leaders in Action, and you can find his excellent book, Thinking Aloud, Reflections on Ethical Leadership, on Amazon. And Josh, also known as J. Elvis Weinstein, has been a stand-up comedy star since he was a teenager. Maybe you've heard his podcast, Thought Spiral. You can also catch his documentary, I Need You to Kill, on Amazon Prime, and find his latest comedy album, Chunks, on Amazon. And be sure to follow him on Twitter. You can find links on our show notes for both Chad and Josh's work. This week's episode also featured myself, Carrie Floden, and my dear friend and Jewish mother, Faye Krupp. Thanks again to our sponsor, The Coloring Book Coach. Find your free coloring book at thecoloringbookcoach.com. Our theme song and ad music is created by Silent Partner, which we found on YouTube's Creator Library. Meet you back here next week for more How in the Hell Did I Get Here stories. Until then, pay attention, my friends. You just never know when you might find yourself saying, how in the hell did I get here? You know, Chad, when I got divorced the first time, and your mom on a Saturday, I had to move, and it was like she showed up in jeans and a T-shirt, and she helped me move.
Wow.
Just your mom on a Saturday. Yeah, I'll never forget that.
That's cool. That's really cool.
She was a good friend. She was a good friend. I mean, she really was one of my best friends. Her and Faye.
I felt the same way about you, for sure.
Yeah. They were the Jewish mothers.
Oh, you had some fun. You all.
Oh my God, we had so much fun.